Sacramento, California, is known for its diverse communities and the stories of those who've journeyed far to build a life in America. Among these stories is that of Chen Wei and Liu Min, a Chinese immigrant couple who left their home in Guangdong province to seek better opportunities in the United States. Chen Wei, in his mid-40s, was a man shaped by traditional Chinese values: hard work, duty to family, and emotional restraint. He grew up in a rural part of Guangdong, where life was tough and opportunities were limited. This background instilled in him a strong sense of responsibility, a trait that defined his actions throughout his life. Chen wasn't one to express his feelings easily. Instead, he focused on providing for his family, believing that his role as a husband and father was fulfilled through his hard work and sacrifices. In the early 2000s, Chen made the difficult decision to leave China in search of a better future. He arrived in the United States alone, facing the challenges of adapting to a new culture and language. Despite these difficulties, Chen was determined to succeed. He took on various jobs, often working long hours in Chinese restaurants, saving every dollar he could to bring his wife, Liu Min, to America. Liu Min, 4 years younger than Chen, was also from Guangdong. Raised in a similar environment, she shared Chen's values and determination. Their marriage had been arranged by their families, a union based on mutual respect rather than romantic love. When Liu Min joined Chen in Sacramento, she brought with her a strong work ethic and a commitment to building a successful life together. The early years of their marriage were marked by hard work and sacrifice as they saved enough money to open their own restaurant. Their first restaurant, a modest Chinese eatery in a quiet neighborhood of Sacramento, quickly became a success. The restaurant catered to the local Chinese community, offering familiar dishes that reminded patrons of their homeland. Chen managed the kitchen, where his years of experience shone through in the quality of the food, while Liu Min handled the business side, managing finances and customer relations. Together, they formed an efficient and successful partnership, eventually expanding their business to include multiple locations. Despite their financial success, the emotional distance between Chen and Liu Min grew over time. Chen remained focused on his work, content with the functional nature of their marriage. He believed that as long as he provided for Liu Min, he was fulfilling his role as a husband. However, Liu Min felt increasingly isolated. She had friends in the local Chinese community and was respected for her role in their business, but she longed for a deeper emotional connection, something that her marriage to Chen did not provide. In early 2020, their lives were further complicated by the arrival of Li Xiao, Chen's daughter from his first marriage. Li Xiao had been raised by her maternal grandparents in rural Guangdong after her mother passed away when she was very young. For years, Chen had sent money to support her, always planning to bring her to the United States when she was older. That time finally came when Li Xiao turned 18 and finished her schooling in China. Chen, seeing this as an opportunity to fulfill his duty as a father, arranged for her to join them in Sacramento. Li Xiao's arrival brought a significant change to the household. For Chen, it was a chance to finally connect with the daughter he had long supported from afar. However, the years of separation had created a distance between them that was hard to bridge. Chen, a man of few words, found it difficult to express his feelings toward Li Xiao, who was essentially a stranger to him. Li Xiao, on the other hand, was both excited and apprehensive about her new life in America. The move marked a significant shift in her life, and she struggled with the cultural differences and language barrier. The father she had longed to know better was distant and preoccupied, leaving her feeling isolated in her new surroundings. Liu Min, who had never had children of her own, approached Li Xiao's arrival with a mix of curiosity and caution. She had always wanted children, but the demands of their business, coupled with Chen's focus on work, had led her to set aside that desire. Now, with Li Xiao in the house, Liu Min saw an opportunity to fulfill a maternal role, even if only in a stepmother capacity. She welcomed Li Xiao into their home and made an effort to help her adjust to life in America. Liu Min's nurturing instincts quickly came to the forefront as she took on the role of Li Xiao's guide and mentor. She introduced Li Xiao to the staff at their restaurants, involved her in family activities, and provided support as Li Xiao navigated the challenges of adapting to a new culture. Gradually, a bond began to form between them, one that went beyond the typical stepmother-stepdaughter relationship. Li Xiao, initially shy and reserved, began to open up to Liu Min. She appreciated her stepmother's efforts to make her feel comfortable and valued in her new home. Liu Min's patience and understanding stood in stark contrast to the more distant and formal relationship she had with her father. As time passed, Li Xiao found herself confiding in Liu Min, sharing her thoughts and feelings in a way she never could with Chen. For Liu Min, this growing bond with Li Xiao was both comforting and fulfilling. It filled an emotional void that had been growing in her marriage for years. The time they spent together, whether at home or working in the restaurants, became a source of joy for Liu Min. She found herself looking forward to their conversations, to the sense of connection she had longed for in her marriage, but had never found with Chen. Chen, meanwhile, remained focused on his work, largely unaware of the changes happening within his family. He saw the bond between Liu Min and Li Xiao as a positive development, believing that Liu Min was simply fulfilling her role as a stepmother. He did not probe deeper into the nature of their relationship, content to let them form their own connection. For him, the smooth running of the household and business was evidence enough that things were going well. The year was 2020. After months of living together, Liu Min and Li Xiao had grown close, their relationship deepening into one of mutual understanding and affection. What had started as a stepmother-stepdaughter bond had transformed into something more complex, driven by a connection that neither had anticipated. Liu Min found herself drawn to Li Xiao in a way she had never experienced before, an attraction that was as emotional as it was physical. For Liu Min, this attraction was confusing and unsettling. She had spent her entire adult life focused on her marriage and business, never allowing herself to entertain thoughts that deviated from her roles as a wife and businesswoman. Yet, as she spent more time with Li Xiao, she found herself longing for the younger woman's company, looking forward to their conversations and the time they spent together, both in the restaurant and at home. Li Xiao, for her part, was initially unaware of the depth of Liu Min's feelings. She had always admired her stepmother's strength and kindness, appreciating the way Liu Min had welcomed her into the family. Li Xiao saw Liu Min as a mentor and friend, someone who had helped her navigate the challenges of adapting to life in America. However, as they grew closer, Li Xiao began to notice subtle changes in Liu Min's behavior, lingering touches, longer eye contact, and a warmth in her stepmother's voice that seemed to go beyond mere affection. The turning point came one evening when Chen was away on a business trip, visiting a supplier in San Francisco. With the house to themselves, Liu Min and Li Xiao shared dinner, talking late into the night. The conversation started innocently enough, discussing Li Xiao's experiences at the restaurant, her thoughts on the future, and her feelings about living in the United States. But as the night wore on, the atmosphere between them shifted. Liu Min found herself captivated by Li Xiao's youthful energy and perspective. The more they talked, the more she realized how much she had missed emotional intimacy in her life. As they sat together in the dimly lit living room, the air thick with unspoken emotions, Liu Min reached out and gently took Li Xiao's hand. The touch lingered longer than it should have, and in that moment, something between them changed. Li Xiao looked into Liu Min's eyes and saw something she hadn't noticed before, a vulnerability and longing that mirrored her own feelings of loneliness and isolation. The connection between them felt electric, charged with emotions that neither had fully acknowledged until now. Without words, they both understood that their relationship had crossed a line, moving into territory that was both exciting and dangerous. For Liu Min, this affair brought a sense of fulfillment she hadn't felt in years. She experienced a closeness and passion with Li Xiao that had long been absent from her marriage to Chen. The affair gave her a renewed sense of purpose and excitement, making her feel alive in a way she hadn't for a long time. However, it also brought with it a constant undercurrent of fear. Fear of discovery, fear of the consequences, and fear of the unknown path they were now on. Li Xiao, too, found herself caught up in the intensity of the relationship. She had never experienced such strong emotions before and was swept away by the thrill of the forbidden. At the same time, she struggled with feelings of guilt and confusion. She respected Chen and was grateful for the life he had provided for her, yet she couldn't deny the powerful connection she felt with Liu Min. The affair became a source of both joy and anxiety, a secret she carried with her every day. However, the pressure of keeping their affair hidden began to take its toll. Liu Min became increasingly paranoid, constantly worrying that Chen would discover the truth. She started to notice small things, Chen asking more questions about her day, or the way he would look at her and Li Xiao during dinner. Each time Chen mentioned taking time off from work to spend more time at home, Liu Min's anxiety grew. Li Xiao, too, felt the strain. She struggled with the duality of her life, the public role of a dutiful daughter and the private secret relationship with her stepmother. The weight of the secret affected her interactions with Chen, making her more reserved and distant. She began to avoid being alone with him, fearing that her feelings would betray her. Despite these challenges, neither Liu Min nor Li Xiao could bring themselves to end the relationship. The connection they shared was too strong, the emotions too overwhelming. They continued to meet in secret, finding solace in each other's company, even as the risk of discovery loomed larger with each passing day. As the relationship deepened, the balance of power within the household subtly shifted. Liu Min, who had always deferred to Chen in matters of family and business, began to assert herself more. She took on more responsibilities in the restaurant, making decisions without consulting Chen, and spent less time at home when he was around. Chen, noticing these changes, attributed them to the pressures of work and the stress of managing a growing business. He had no reason to suspect that anything was amiss in his marriage. The turning point came in the early summer of 2021, when Chen Wei's suspicions, which had been simmering for months, finally erupted into a full-blown investigation. By this time, Chen had noticed subtle but significant changes in both Liu Min and Li Xiao. Although he had initially dismissed these as minor issues related to the pressures of running their expanding restaurant business, his instincts told him that something was amiss in his household. Chen was a methodical man, not one to act on impulse. Over the past few months, he had quietly observed the growing closeness between his wife and daughter. He noticed the way they often shared private looks, how they seemed to find excuses to spend time alone together, and how their demeanor would shift when he entered the room. What had started as a vague feeling of discomfort had grown into a persistent concern that he could no longer ignore. It wasn't just the emotional distance that alarmed him. Chen began to notice more concrete evidence, small, seemingly innocuous details that, when pieced together, formed a disturbing picture. He observed how Liu Min's behavior had changed in subtle ways. She became more secretive, often stepping away to take phone calls or sending text messages late at night. Li Xiao, too, seemed different, more guarded around him, less enthusiastic about spending time as a family. These changes were enough to make Chen question what was really happening under his roof. Chen's first step was to confront his wife, though he did so in a roundabout way. During one of their few quiet moments together, he casually asked Liu Min if everything was all right, if she was feeling stressed by the demands of work or their expanding business. Liu Min, caught off guard by the question, reassured him that everything was fine, blaming her recent behavior on the pressures of managing their restaurants. Chen pretended to accept this explanation, but inside, his doubts only deepened. Determined to find out the truth, Chen decided to take a more direct approach. He began to look for tangible evidence of what he feared was going on. One evening, when Liu Min was in the shower, he took her phone from the nightstand and quickly scrolled through her messages. What he found confirmed his worst fears. There were texts between Liu Min and Li Xiao that went beyond the usual exchanges between a stepmother and daughter. The messages were filled with affection, longing, and references to secret meetings that Chen had not known about. Shaken, Chen continued to dig deeper. Over the next few days, he kept a close eye on both Liu Min and Li Xiao, watching for any signs that would corroborate what he had read. He started coming home early from work, hoping to catch them in the act, but Liu Min and Li Xiao were always careful, never letting their guard down when Chen was around. This only fueled his frustration and anger. Chen's next step was to search their home for more evidence. While Liu Min was out one day, he went through her personal belongings, hoping to find something that would confirm his suspicions. In the back of their closet, hidden under a pile of old clothes, he found a small box. Inside were letters exchanged between Liu Min and Li Xiao, intimate handwritten notes that spoke of their feelings for each other and the time they had spent together in secret. These letters were undeniable proof that the relationship between his wife and daughter was far from ordinary. The discovery was a devastating blow to Chen. The realization that his wife and daughter had betrayed him, that they had been carrying on an affair right under his nose, was almost too much to bear. Chen was a man who prided himself on his control, on his ability to manage his life and his family with discipline and order. But now, he felt that control slipping away, replaced by a rage he could barely contain. Over the next few days, Chen struggled with what to do next. The evidence he had found was irrefutable, but the implications were overwhelming. If he confronted Liu Min and Li Xiao, it would destroy their family and potentially ruin everything they had worked so hard to build. But if he did nothing, he would be forced to live with the knowledge of their betrayal, a constant reminder of how his life had spun out of control. Unable to bear the thought of continuing to live in ignorance, Chen decided that he had no choice but to confront them. He chose a quiet evening when the restaurant was closed and they were all at home. With the evidence laid out before him, the texts, the letters, Chen called Liu Min and Li Xiao into the living room. His heart pounded as he prepared to confront them with the truth. Liu Min and Li Xiao entered the room, both sensing that something was wrong. The tension in the air was palpable, and Chen's stern expression left no doubt that he was about to say something serious. Chen wasted no time, his voice cold and controlled as he presented the evidence he had found. He laid the phone messages and letters on the coffee table, the incriminating texts and notes spread out like damning evidence in a courtroom. Liu Min's face went pale as she realized what Chen had uncovered. Li Xiao looked from the letters to her father, her expression a mixture of fear and guilt. The silence in the room was suffocating, broken only by Chen's steady accusing voice as he demanded an explanation. Liu Min, caught in the trap of her own making, tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. She had known that their affair was dangerous, that it could never stay hidden forever, but she had never imagined it would come to this. Now, faced with the reality of Chen's discovery, she was at a loss for how to justify her actions or to beg for forgiveness. Li Xiao, too, was at a loss for words. The shame and guilt she felt were overwhelming. She had known from the beginning that what they were doing was wrong, that it could never end well. Yet she had allowed herself to be swept up in the emotions of the relationship, believing that they could somehow keep it hidden, that they could continue living their double life without consequences. Chen's anger, which had been simmering beneath the surface, finally erupted. He demanded to know how long the affair had been going on, why they had betrayed him, and what they thought would happen when he found out. His voice rose with each question, his composure slipping as the full weight of his fury came crashing down on them. Liu Min, tears streaming down her face, finally managed to speak. She tried to explain how lonely she had been, how the emotional distance in their marriage had left her vulnerable to the connection she had found with Li Xiao. But her words sounded hollow, even to her own ears. There was no justification that could excuse the betrayal, no way to undo the damage that had been done. Li Xiao, too, tried to apologize, to explain that she had never meant to hurt her father. But like Liu Min, she knew that no apology could repair the shattered trust or the broken family. The affair had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, leaving them all in a situation from which there was no easy escape. Chen, unable to forgive the betrayal, became increasingly distant and cold. He avoided speaking to Liu Min and Li Xiao unless absolutely necessary, and when he did, his words were clipped and laced with bitterness. The once warm home was now filled with a palpable sense of dread. Liu Min and Li Xiao, for their part, were trapped in a nightmare of their own making. They lived in constant fear of what Chen might do next, knowing that the fragile peace they were maintaining could shatter at any moment. Every day felt like walking on eggshells, the tension so thick it was suffocating. Chen's behavior grew more erratic as the days went by. He began drinking heavily, something he had never done before, and his moods became unpredictable. He would disappear for hours, returning home late at night, drunk and seething with anger. Liu Min tried to talk to him, to find some way to salvage their marriage, but Chen was beyond reasoning. The betrayal had cut too deep, and all that was left in him was a simmering rage. One evening, after another tense day of silence and avoidance, things took a violent turn. Chen had spent the day drinking and was in a foul mood when he returned home. Liu Min and Li Xiao were in the kitchen, preparing a late dinner in an attempt to maintain some semblance of normalcy. When Chen walked in, the air immediately thickened with tension. Chen staggered into the kitchen, his eyes bloodshot and his movements unsteady. Without a word, he grabbed a beer from the fridge and slumped into a chair at the kitchen table. Liu Min and Li Xiao exchanged worried glances, both sensing that something terrible was about to happen. As they ate in silence, Chen suddenly slammed his fist onto the table, causing both women to jump. He started ranting, his words slurred and filled with venom. He accused them of destroying his life, of making him a laughingstock. His voice grew louder, more aggressive, as he vented all the anger and pain that had been building inside him since the day he discovered their affair. Liu Min tried to calm him down, to reason with him, but Chen was beyond listening. He got up from the table, his movements erratic, and began pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. The more he talked, the more his anger spiraled out of control, until finally, in a fit of rage, he grabbed a kitchen knife from the counter. Liu Min froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never seen Chen like this before. The look in his eyes was one of pure hatred, a look that terrified her. Li Xiao, too, was paralyzed with fear, unable to move as Chen turned his attention to her. With the knife in hand, Chen advanced on Li Xiao, his intentions clear. Liu Min screamed, pleading with him to stop, but Chen was beyond reasoning. In a desperate attempt to protect Li Xiao, Liu Min threw herself in front of her stepdaughter, trying to shield her from Chen's wrath. What happened next was a blur. Chen, blinded by rage and alcohol, lashed out with the knife. The sharp blade sliced through the air, and before anyone could react, Liu Min was struck. The knife plunged into her side, and she collapsed to the floor, gasping in pain. Li Xiao screamed, the sound piercing the night. She rushed to Liu Min's side, trying to staunch the bleeding, but the wound was deep, and Liu Min was losing blood fast. Chen, realizing what he had done, stumbled back, the knife falling from his hand as he stared in horror at the scene before him. In the chaos that followed, Li Xiao called 911, her voice frantic as she begged for help. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but it was too late. Liu Min was pronounced dead at the scene, the life drained from her by the very man who had once vowed to protect her. Chen, in shock and overwhelmed with guilt, made no attempt to flee. He was arrested on the spot, taken into custody as the full weight of his actions began to sink in. The family that had once seemed so strong was now completely shattered, destroyed by the dark secrets they had tried so hard to keep hidden. Li Xiao was left alone, her world turned upside down in a matter of moments. The woman she had loved was gone, and her father was responsible. The affair that had once been a source of forbidden passion had now ended in unimaginable tragedy. The consequences of their actions had finally caught up with them, leaving nothing but pain and devastation in their wake. The aftermath of Liu Min's death was a whirlwind of chaos, grief, and legal proceedings. The police quickly secured the crime scene, and Chen Wei was taken into custody, charged with the murder of his wife. The shock of the incident reverberated through Sacramento's Chinese community, where the Wei family was well known and respected for their business acumen. What had once been seen as a model family was now the center of a brutal domestic tragedy. Li Xiao, devastated by the loss of Liu Min and the arrest of her father, was left to grapple with the overwhelming emotions and the harsh reality of what had transpired. She was questioned extensively by the police, who needed to understand the circumstances leading up to the murder. Li Xiao had no choice but to recount the events of that fateful night, explaining the intense argument that had erupted and the violence that followed. The investigation revealed the details of the affair between Liu Min and Li Xiao, a revelation that only added to the sensational nature of the case. Detectives uncovered the text messages and letters that Chen had found, as well as testimonies from employees at the restaurant who had noticed the growing closeness between Liu Min and her stepdaughter. Chen's legal team faced an uphill battle. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Physical evidence from the crime scene, eyewitness testimony from Li Xiao, and Chen's own admission of guilt when he was arrested. His lawyers argued that Chen had acted in a moment of temporary insanity, driven by the betrayal of his wife and daughter, but the prosecution countered with the argument that this was a premeditated act of violence. The prosecution sought a conviction for first-degree murder, arguing that Chen's actions were deliberate and calculated. As the trial date approached, the case garnered significant media attention, both locally and nationally. Reporters flocked to Sacramento, eager to cover the dramatic story of love, betrayal, and murder within an immigrant family. The public, too, was captivated by the case, with many speculating on how such a tragedy could unfold in what seemed to be a successful and happy household. In court, the trial unfolded over several weeks, with both the prosecution and defense presenting their cases. Li Xiao was called to testify, a moment she had dreaded but knew was inevitable. On the witness stand, she recounted the events leading up to the murder, describing the relationship she had with Liu Min and the explosive confrontation with Chen. The defense attempted to humanize Chen, portraying him as a man who had been pushed to the edge by the betrayal of those he loved most. They argued that Chen had been a devoted husband and father, who had been blindsided by the affair and reacted in a moment of uncontrollable anger. Character witnesses were brought in to testify about Chen's good character, his dedication to his family and his business, in an attempt to mitigate the charges against him. However, the prosecution